there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Call of Juarez Gunslinger, and this is the True West difficulty walkthrough. So we're on Chapter 6, it's called Dances with Renegades. I believe it's a play on the Western with Kevin Costner in it called Dances with Wolves. And as you can see, we're killing some Indians, or Indians as they should be called. And this section of the game is not too bad. There's a couple of sections coming up where it's all pretty standard. By the time you get here, you have the skill to do it, because you've already done, you know, much tougher moments. And it's just a case of taking it slow, staying in cover, using your skill tree and your guns in tandem to a way that benefits you and the way you play. And just keep on soldiering on. It's really that simple. Like, I really like this game, and I need an excuse to go back and play it, because I've only beat it twice, and there's still a lot of fun to be had, because it's one of those... Oh, hang on. If you're wondering what's happening here, I could hear a noise, and I didn't know what it was through my headset, because my headsets were cranked up, and it sounded really loud, and it was him clipping against the geometry, like his arm was clipping through it at some point, so it was making it vibrate, and it was colliding with it, and it was making a lot of noise, and you might be able to hear it on the actual recording. I can't at this moment in time, because I don't have a headset, which... to a lot of people doesn't sound like much of a big thing, but it's actually more of a big thing than I thought it'd be, because I use my headset for everything, and at this moment in time it's broken and I don't have a backup, so I can't talk over Xbox Live and, you know, play with friends in a party chat. I can't live stream and listen to the game. I can't do live commentaries while playing the game unless I've got it on, you know, silent, and I can't even play games at night with volume. It's fucking crazy how much it's affecting the way I live at this moment in time when it comes to doing stuff for YouTube or the recreational stuff I do with friends. So it's kind of mad, really. But the joy of it is it's easier to break away and do other things, which might not be beneficial for you know, making walkthroughs, but they're definitely beneficial for my sanity, because I'm one of those people that my favourite thing to do with games is to watch or listen to something on my PC, which is very close to my television, while I play a game. Because I've probably played the game before, I probably know everything I need to do with the game as far as my ability, so I don't need to give it 100% of my attention, because 100% of my attention is overkill. You know, I can generally do it quite comfortably with about 50 to 60%, and the rest of that attention can then be directed at watching a television show, or a film, or listening to something, or a podcast, or a live stream, or something like that. And because you're doing two things at once that you would like to do, you know, individually, not only are you saving time in my eyes, but you're constantly stimulated by interesting stuff, because the live stream's doing completely different things, talking about completely different stuff, and on screen something completely different is happening than what's happening on the live stream. And it's just an info dump of stimuli, and I really enjoy it, because I have a wicked attention span. It's terrible. It's so fucking terrible, man. It really is. And unless I'm playing a new game or watching a film that I'm super stoked for, or like watching a UFC that's got people on the card that I'm invested with and I enjoy watching fight, I'm terrible. Like, I immediately have half screen and I'm searching the internet, because we've got so many temptations at this moment in time, so many distractions, and like I grew up when we didn't have the same amount of distractions. We still had quite a lot compared to my parents, but even then I was terrible at paying attention. So nowadays it's like a minefield of tangents, which reflects quite a lot in my commentary when I start talking about something random. And if you saw my early commentary, it was even more so, because what I used to do is I used to commentate downstairs in the conservatory, which I can't really do anymore. Mainly at this moment in time it's summer, so the conservatory is a heat trap, and you know, if you want to feel your body falling out of your ass one drop at a time, you want to spend some time in that conservatory, because it is ridiculously magnified. But what I used to do is I used to carry my laptop in there, put it on an ironing board, because that's how cool I was. I had a headset at the time that was my microphone as well, so I just used to plug that bad boy in, and I would put the TV on while I commentated. So there was a TV behind my laptop, so I was watching the game, but I was also keeping an eye on what was happening on TV. And I would go through channels until something silly came on or something interesting, so whenever I had nothing to speak about, I could always be saying, you know, have you seen this? this advert, that advert, this film, that film, something that I don't agree with is this or that, and it stimulated me in a way where I always had something to fall back on. And I've not done that now for years, and I do miss it because it made it much easier for me. Because I'm one of those type of people that, you know, you show me an advert and I could probably talk about that advert for an hour, and just, you know, everything from practical things and observations to just the ridiculous and hyperbolic and silly. But I don't do that anymore because for the most, some of the guys that I made, well, I got a tower which changed the setup, so I was no longer down in the conservatory, but I also made a bunch of guides that needed almost my complete attention, which is rare. It's really rare, and it's what makes this medium kind of sad, because there's a lot of games coming out now that just aren't difficult. Like, this game is not as hard as Call of Juarez 2. Call of Juarez 2 is really challenging on True West. I'd never played the first one, but I assume that one's quite challenging as well. This one is, there's a couple of hairy moments, but for the most, this one is not that hard. So when I come to these commentaries, my first thought is, oh, I've got this to share to the audience, I've got this to share to the people that are listening, that are struggling, this grand observation, this great technique. I don't have that, folks, because it's not needed. And it's not because I'm a fantastic player. You know, it's not because I know something you don't. It's just because the game itself, compared to how punishing the previous one was, well, not the previous one, because that was that fucking terrible modern one, but the one before that, the Bound in Blood, it was more demanding on the player. And I'm fortunate at this moment in time that I'm quite sharp in my gaming habit, where I get to play games every day. Sometimes it's only for a short while, other times it's for an unhealthy spell. But when you do play games quite regularly, you do get, and you build up, you know, your muscle memory, you build up your reflexes, you do get an affinity towards those games. So when I pick up another first-person shooter, I can immediately relate with what's happening. I can immediately get in there and hopefully do well. And it's the same with a lot of different games, and it does help for making walkthroughs. It does help for when these new titles come out, because a lot of people ask me, you know, why do you play on the hardest difficulty? You know, why do you start on the most punishing level or the most difficult one you can pick? And the reason is, that is where I find my challenge these days, because I am so experienced with certain game types. I am so, you know, well versed at the shooting games, because that's all we've got at this moment in time. This most recent generation has lasted a little bit too long, and one of the crutches that's come from this is the fact that all we really have are shooting games. There's a lot of shooting being done, and it sells. So at this moment in time, if you're like me and you enjoy playing all the games, you have played a lot of shooting games, and they're all predominantly the same. You know, they look different, some of them play different, sometimes there's interesting mechanics, some are better than others, but for the most, you are exploiting geometry to stop enemy bullets and putting your bullets in them when you get an opportunity to do so. So for the most, it's completely trivialised in its difficulty. Little transition there where there's a cutscene. You're now going to get attacked by a bunch of these bandits that are going to glow red because we're in like a super sense mode. All you have to do is kill a bunch of them. I recommend staying between this tent and this box. They don't seem to ever really rush you, and the sequence is almost timed or based on how many you kill. So just take your time, pick your shots, and you shouldn't have any issue with this moment at all. It's simple. But I picked the harder difficulties so that the game doesn't last me 3 hours, because normal difficulty nowadays is pretty much like what easy used to be. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Hard difficulty nowadays is what normal was 10 years ago. So the difficulties have changed so drastically that the new generation of players are so used to having the handheld. They're so used to the game telling them where to go, always knowing what's, you know, required of them, because the game generally doesn't do anything more stimulating than clear the room of dudes. You know, kill everybody and listen to the toll that plays that tells you killed everybody in the room. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing, because I do think we need some filler games. I do think we need some mindlessly stupid games that involve nothing but shooting, but that's all we kind of have. And a lot of the ones that deviate from that plan, they don't sell as well, so that they don't get the sequel, or they don't get the new IP that's promising something different, because they just want you to make Modern Warfare. They just want you to make, you know, Medal of Honor or Battlefield, and is that really all we want these days? Because I don't anymore. Like, I'm not really excited for Call of Duty Ghosts at all, because I've barely played Black Ops 2. I've just kind of fallen out of love with Call of Duty. I didn't like Battlefield 3 online because I thought it was shitty. I loved Bad Company 2, but Battlefield 4 does not, excite me at all, because I've seen it. At this point, it's just a nicer version of what we've played. The new Halo, I couldn't give a flying fuck, but that's just because I've never cared about Halo. Destiny looks really interesting because it's different, and that is why I find that interesting. Titanfall is very similar. It looks so much different than a lot of the stuff we have, just because making a mech work in a first-person shooter and in especially a big multiplayer setting is something that I want to see if they can pull off. And it's why I'm not excited for things like Killzone Shadow Fall, the new one coming to PlayStation 4, because what they've done is they've taken the one thing that made Killzone kind of appealing, which was its extremely dramatic effect of its visuals, and they've turned it into a standard generic first-person shooter, which is what everybody obviously wanted. And the funniest thing about it is Killzone was already a pretty fucking generic first-person shooter. The first one was great, but every single one after that is just... The second one was bad. Third one was better, but it still wasn't setting the world on fire. All it really has going for it is that it looks so fucking good. The gunplay never felt good. The first game, I don't know if it's because I was young or because it was just on PlayStation 2, that it seemed to work so much better than it does. But when they moved to PS3, just fucked it up for me. And it's like, I don't care for that. So, this shooter nation, it needs to move on. We need to progress into something that's not a dog barking outside. And I don't really know the answer, because I don't really want the next gen consoles. And it's not because I don't want to have the next progression or I don't want to be part of the new generation. It's just, they've given me zero reason to be interested. All the games that they've shown, there's a handful of games that I'm really excited for, and the rest, I look at them like I look at every other game. I'd like to play it, but I could not play it. It's not going to change, my predicament or my view on life if I miss it. And then there's the mandatory YouTuber perspective of, I know that the next generation is going to be really hot on YouTube. A lot of people who are like me and don't necessarily want to buy it are going to want to watch it. So, from a business standpoint, I would be stupid not to get these consoles, but it's difficult to just be that way. I'm not a big enough channel where everything I do or everything that comes my way is weighed in how it could benefit me, financially or view-wise, because it's not really how I view this stuff. Like this guide here. This guide was a fun guide to make, and I'm glad I did it. I enjoyed the game, and it's a game I'm glad I represent on my channel. But I'm under no illusion that this guide is doing terrible. Like, I don't think I have a video on this series that has over 1,000 views. Which, there are some YouTubers out there that wouldn't even continue to post it. They would just kill it. And I've always said from day one that I would try my best not to make it about the numbers. This sequence here I thought was going to be really hard, by the way. And if you were in the live stream, which is now being deleted by Twitch, which sucks a massive cock, I was kind of worried about this moment, and I did it first time. And all I did was I stayed over in this corner. There's a couple of guys behind me on the rock who can't see me, so they don't clip me from behind. And I just check my left and right and shoot anybody that turns up. And one of the things I noticed, and I think the stream noticed as well, is the damage that I was taking was significantly less than it would have been, and the aggression of the enemies was less too, because this is hardly any cover and a bunch of guys at a height advantage shooting down on you, so it's unfair to begin with. But the game realises that it's kind of unfair and cheap, so it gives you a helping hand, and that to me is perfect game design. It could have been slightly harder, and I don't think I would have minded, but they could have, complemented that with a checkpoint or two, which would have completely mitigated any frustration and enabled the difficulty to feel like a natural progression and not feel like it was forced. But the next generation is kind of close now, and I do have the money to buy the systems. I mean, I'm not in a financially stable place at this moment in time because I'm trying to find a career. I'm sending out applications to people that aren't even reading them, which is very sad and demotivational, but, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's the mantra that I've had for my channel, I think I have the best quality, the best content on YouTube. Sure, Some of my sound could be better because I'm not using a very expensive mic. I'm using a mic that costs some money, but there are always better mics. My setup right now is not optimized at all, so you can hear my PC, you can hear its giant fucking fan. And I could use software to get rid of that, get rid of a lot of that noise, but it's one of those things where it already adds to the workflow. It's already really long, and the best way to mitigate that is to get a better setup, instead of, you know, getting this technology that mitigates marginally some of it, as opposed to getting rid of all of it. But that aside, I think the gameplay is as good as it can be. You know, it's well edited, it's as honest as I can make it, and the commentary is always going to be the main crutch of the channel, because this is a commentary based channel. These guides are here so that I can show you how to do it, and often I'll tell you how to do some of it. For the most, I talk about other things, and that can rub people the wrong way, but that's what makes it intrinsically mine. And yeah, YouTube and YouTubianness. It's a minefield, folks. But thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and you take care now.